we talked about attachment, we talked about state regulation. I now want to move on to mutual regulation because this is where the message about learning through mistakes and what it takes in a relationship to be able to face mistakes and discover what they mean happens. So in the olden days of child psychiatry, the understanding of mother-child, and of course people never looked at fathers, mother, and then people always thought it was about the nuclear family. They forgot that most of the world for most of history didn't live in nuclear families. So they just looked at mothers and babies. And they had this male fantasy that mothers always knew exactly what their babies needed seconds before they had any information from the baby about what the baby might need. And then, in their wisdom, Dr. Brazelton and Toronto began to look at videotapes of mothers and infants and found that it didn't look that way at all. So here's an example with a 4-month-old, and you'll see here a split screen, and I apologize for the quality of the slides. As soon as the mother appears, look at what happens to the baby. Hands come right up, mouth opens wide, eyes open wide. And what he's doing is he's looking at this visual information. Oh, there's a familiar face. And then he's processing it to sort of layer it onto all of the other times he's seen that face, which he has tagged with different emotions in his memory. And there's this aggregate of, most of the time when I see that face, it's a pretty good feeling. And so that's what's going to happen now. But look at her. What's she doing? Has she read his mind? Does she have X-ray vision? Did she get to that state before he did? No. He went there first, and she will follow. Not because she got out some textbook and read, oh, that's what my baby's doing, that's what I need to do. No. Because she was emotionally available in this moment. And she doesn't have to be, none of us are all the time, but she was in this moment. Don't have to be all the time. To be able to simply register, oh, he's going up to this height of excitement and I'll go there too. But the impact of this on this baby's development is, and it happens hundreds of times every day, when I do stuff, it matters. When I express myself, it gets across. When I act on the world responds. It's one of the earliest experiences of causality. And you can't have this kind of learning about causality, or for that matter, about being able to be an active learner in the world without protected moments of emotional availability in the adult caregivers. And that, I think, is one of the things that your institutions can offer parents, is the comfort and the support and the peace and the connections of your relationships to be able to have a few more moments of clearing out all the stress in their lives to be emotionally present with their children. So here they are in matching states of excitement, and we all want to be there too, until something happens. If you look at the baby, you see a change in his face? His jaw has dropped, description, not inference for the moment. His jaw has dropped and kind of fallen to one side. I don't even know how he does that. His lids are down a little bit. And my inference is that he is regulating his state. It was so exciting and we were having so much fun smiling and looking at each other's eyes that I just got a little bit worn out. And I take a little break and look away and, put off some of the stimulation. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So they're engaged and then disengaged, and then they re-engage at a lower level of excitement, looking at each other's hands, and then come back again. I just want to say, before I move on to the last area, that I also think that this particular area of mutual regulation is perhaps where one of the answers to world peace lies, which may sound kind of hopelessly optimistic. But I think a lot of the misunderstandings that people have among each other is because of this kind of nonverbal communication. Because the pace and the rhythm and what you do with the corner of your eyelid or the crinkling your cheek in a microsecond is different from one culture to another. It's responded to differently by parents, and so some gets reinforced and some gets extinguished. So that there are some cultures where you don't make eye contact. It's considered disrespectful. But if you're from a culture where you do, you feel as if people, are suspicious or avoidant or don't want to connect with you. There's in the Gusii tribe in Kenya, where when the baby reaches the peak of excitement, the mother looks away because that kind of excited state is not valued and isn't reinforced. And it's not that any of these ways is better or worse, but I think it's why we sometimes don't understand each other and don't even realize that we don't. So I think the main point I want to make about this mutual regulation, this second-to-second interaction, which can be so readily thrown off by anything that causes a parent to be emotionally unavailable more than a certain amount of time, is that don't worry, those of you with young children. You don't have to be available all the time. In the typical mother-infant interaction, the matching states only occur for 30% of this time. 70% of the time you can be answering the phone or having an argument with your husband or whatever. It's okay. 30%. And the learning goes on after you've kind of lost touch with each other, lost track, and when you're struggling, as you saw here, to figure out what happened inside of me, what happened inside of them, where did she go, where did I go, how do we get each other back, what do I do, what does she do, how do we know we found each other again, that's where the learning happens in relationships. And again, I think that there are endless analogies here to our relationships with each other, with our colleagues, with the parents that we work with as well. But that when we are overwhelmed by demands from our environment, we may get shoved into preoccupation with intolerable stress so that the amount of time that we're able to be emotionally present is diminished so much that the learning can't happen. And then children stop looking to us, stop looking at our faces for information and for connection and for learning, because their experience is that we're not there. And again, I think that by by seeing this as your role, that you are providing families with the emotional support so that they can be emotionally available to their children, you'll be doing far more than anything else that you can do in the way of advice or tips or specific stimulation-based learning for young children.